Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the most electrifying sports podcast in the 716. You are now tuned in to Buffalo Sports Insider. Thank you for joining me on this fine Wednesday afternoon. I'm your host, Justin Cejak. Today, we are joined by Richie Miller, Colton Pankowitz, and Sarah Terrio, and we've got a lot to cover, so stay tuned. First, I'm going to plug all our socials. Run to that TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Run all of that through. We got a lot of content popping out right now. We are going to start today with some Buffalo Sabres talk, because we've got a lot to talk about. There's a few updates. Most notably, we've got a call-up from the Rochester Americans. Brandon Biro finally makes his debut for the Buffalo Sabres. Much awaited. He is actually going to be debuting on the first line. Sarah, tell us more about that.
I am definitely very excited because I loved Biro when I was seeing him for preseason. He's made a huge importance for the team, and especially last season, Granada wanted him so bad for call-ups, but due to an injury last season, 4 different times, he's unable to call up, and he's finally able to have a mark. He had incredible stats for last season, specifically for Rochester Americans. Last season, he had 51 points for only playing 49 games. He was second behind Rosak, who had 56, who played 70 games. So you could see a definitely drastic in him only playing 49 games. He left mid-season last season due to injury as well as a surgery, and now he's back. He's played 5 games. He's already had 6 points. But Granado's always loved him. He's intelligent. He completes other players. He knows different positions. He can play right wing, left wing, center. He plays it all. He's just very intelligent. He's slippery where he needs to be. And I'm very, very excited to see him back and playing the front line.
Yeah, it's very exciting. He'll be joining Jordan Greenway and Tage Thompson actually on the first line tonight. What do you tell me about that first line?
I just think the Sabres view it a little bit different than most teams. Like that's where 99% of the talent is on almost every team. I think the Sabres are just viewing that like differently. Like it's like a chemistry between, Greenway's look great with Thompson, and I just think it's someone to provide that spark and kind of
absolutely
be almost like the mouse. I want to refer to it as.
Yeah,
they're just constantly around the ice. It's where Thompson's finding a space to shoot. Byro's maybe looking to create some kind of space.
Yeah,
I like it a lot. I like that they're rotating that one spot on the first line until someone fits.
Sure.
And I think, like you said, just now, that they would have had Biro last year.
Yeah.
But he was injured, and Granado said that. And so to see them not only bring him up, but put them with arguably some of the best, the best player on the team is kind of exciting to see for his development.
Cool. And that's interesting because this is a guy who has absolutely earned his spot in the lineup. He's played phenomenally for Rochester. We had a couple updates as far as injuries. Zach Benson, still week to week with that lower body injury. When do you expect him back in the line?
I mean, he played on Sunday, but personally with such an aggressive team, I feel that definitely set back his progress in getting better because Avalanche was such an aggressive team, especially with hitting, and he's small. And you know how big and heavy some hockey players could be, and he was getting slammed continuously over and over into the walls. I'm sure that definitely put back his progress. So I'm sure. Maybe 3 weeks.
It's a re-injury, so I don't expect them to rush him back too fast. I mean, the Sabres arguably have the best depth in the league, especially the forward position. So I don't expect them to rush him back anytime soon. I was also intrigued to see that Jost is in and Olofsson's out.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
I like that.
I think that's a
I'm very glad.
Fans. And then obviously we have Devin Levi, who is slowly making his way back in the lineup. He'll be backing up UPL tonight. And speaking of tonight, they are in Philadelphia taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. And not only that, they'll also play them Friday at home. We got to keep an eye out for a few special players on Flyers. They're only 4-4-1, not overly impressive, but they do have a couple guys, Travis Konechny and Carter Hart. What can you tell me about this matchup?
Definitely, he's played, I don't remember how many games. He's got 11 points already, so he's definitely a person to look out for.
Yeah.
When we have star players on other teams, we always get distracted, especially when it comes to defending the goal. We've had numerous issues, especially with like the Devils game, where we lacked a lot of defense and we left the goalie high and dry when those areas came up with the strong players. But I'm hoping with this line switch up, we have a Greenway on the front line.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he'll be able to have more support because personally, I have been a huge fan of Darlene on the defense. So hopefully Greenway will step up and take that spot and hopefully I get a win.
You paid Darlene a lot of money to play a well-rounded game, so we'd like to see that happen. As I mentioned before, Friday they'll also take on the Flyers.
Wearing
And
black
that'll be
jerseys.
at home wearing the infamous goat head jerseys. 12-1-1 now.
I have strong hope.
Hammer that Sabres money line while you're at it right now. And then Saturday, Saturday, they'll also take on Toronto Maple Leafs. Is that home or away?
I believe that might be away.
I think that's away as well. So that'll be an interesting matchup, always an intriguing matchup between the Sabres and the Maple Leafs. A lot to look forward to as we've got some movement in these lines now. It'll be interesting to see how.
I'm glad Tuck is on the third line.
Yeah, we have Tuck on the third line. Obviously,
he looks really strong on Sunday, so I'm really glad he's sticking to the third line.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot to look for out for that Sabres game. We're going to transition out to a commercial real quick, and when we come back, Kayla Sterner is going to come and talk UB football with us. Stay tuned.
You wouldn't do that. So why do you do this? Distracted driving kills an average of 9 people and injures over 1,000 every day in America. Put down your phone. Lives depend on it. Don't drive intoxicated. Don't drive intoxicated. A sobering message from AAA.
Welcome back to Buffalo Sports Insider, everybody. We've got a lot to talk about, and we are now joined by the UB football specialist, Kayla Sterner herself. Thank you for joining us, Kayla.
Thank you.
We kind of anticipated this, right? UB takes on Toledo, and they lose 31-13. Just a deflating game, honestly. We kind of knew it wasn't going to be close because Toledo is very impressive. Kayla, what can you tell me about this game?
Well, so Toledo came out with a Freddy Krueger mindset this Halloween game.
I like that.
They did not hesitate at all to assert their dominance. They rushed out to 2 touchdowns within the first 3 minutes. One was a 97-yarder off of the kickoff, and then they let in a 71-yarder. But mind you, Toledo was ranked 3rd in the nation for rushing yards heading into this game. After the first quarter, they were able to hold the team to 107 rushing yards for the remaining 3 quarters.
Yeah.
So although the score doesn't show it, the Bulls' defense really did show out. It's just hard to tell when you're facing an offense that is that red hot. They're on a 7-8 game win streak now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very impressive team. Richie, what can you tell me about this game? What did you see?
So I was not expecting much, especially from UB's defense against that run game. But honestly, just an extremely disappointing game from Cole Snyder, 14-41, 2 interceptions. And he's kind of just been very mediocre all year, to put it lightly. And I was wondering if there is a chance that they might consider someone else there, perhaps CJ Ogbonna or maybe one of their other QBs they have down the depth chart. But
I think it's
UB
definitely
is
time.
just
and that's always tough to do in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
But I mean, 14 for 41, that puts you at a 34% completion rate with 2 interceptions, 151 yards. You can't win ball games like that, Cole.
Hey, they ran the ball really well, though.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a change of quarterback because the Bulls actually had the ball for longer. They had it for over 34 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And usually that leads to favorable matchups, but the defense allows, not just the defense, special teams allows chunk plays, and if you erase a 7, obviously you can't, but erase a 71-yarder in the kickoff, and that game's a lot closer.
Yeah.
And I know that maybe not nobody, but I didn't have high expectations in terms of score. But outside of those 2 chunk plays, I didn't think it was that bad defensively.
Yeah.
Snyder struggled, but Cook.
The
senior looked really good. And they kept it in pace in terms of rushing yards. They just couldn't move the ball through the air. And
that's kind of been a theme for UB all season, right? We've got a few games left in play. Obviously, the defense did stand out this game. They led Boone to only 125 and 1 touchdown on the ground. So we knew it was going to be a difficult task to kind of stop that run game. Kayla, what can you tell me about these final 3 games for the UB Bulls?
So if the Bulls have any hope of going to a bowl game, they have to win these next 3 games. Yeah. And I unfortunately do not see it happening.
Yeah.
When you look up the bowl game standings, no network expects the Bulls to go either. And they're about to face Ohio, who, although they have the same record in the MAC, Ohio overall is 6-3.
Mm-hmm. That's obviously it's going to be a tall task to kind of sweep the rest of the slate here. But that Ohio game next Tuesday, the 7th, it's a home game. So that's encouraging. But they're going to have to play some of their best football here, Richie.
Yeah, and then the week after they have Miami of Ohio, who's also 6-3. It's just not looking very promising.
Yeah.
I will say if Devin Grant keeps improving and keeps playing the way he is, though, there is still always hope.
Yeah.
Again, he's also only a sophomore, and he's putting up good numbers. He leads the MAC right now with 5 interceptions.
Yep.
As long as he's
That's
on the
impressive.
Field, there is still a chance. He grabs the forced fumble. He forces the fumbles. He picks up the fumbles. He's still a threat on the field.
Do we think that Devin Grant is the team MVP through however many weeks they played?
Absolutely.
So.
They are not in the games they have stayed in without him.
Well, I think it's impressive with 5 interceptions considering how bad they've been.
Yeah.
And if you're in as a defense, a negative game script and they're running the ball.
Yeah.
Where's 5 picks coming from?
That's impressive at any level of football,
it is.
in my opinion. 5 interceptions. You're a true ball hawk. And I think you earned that name at that point. So it will be important to see how they will fare in these next couple games. Like I said, Ohio next Tuesday, the 7th, at home. Tune in, support the UB Bulls. They need you guys more than ever at this point. Right now, we're going to shift into an NFL trade deadline recap because a lot happened right now. There was a lot of major moves, a lot of movement, a lot of prominent names that moved around here. And I think the one that stands out to me most, guys, is Chase Young to the 49ers for a 3rd-round pick. What can you tell me about that, Richie?
I think that's just the rich getting richer. The fact that he went for less value than what Leonard Williams did was kind of crazy to me. Obviously, he struggled with injuries, but he still is a guy that has not reached his full potential yet.
Yeah. And I think this is a guy who's been riddled with injuries his whole career.
Yes.
I don't hate it for the Commanders though. He the spirit that he had in prior years wasn't there this year.
Right.
They described him as lazy and didn't finish plays if it didn't look like he was going to win the rep. So I think for them it's just the change of a culture, the change of new ownership.
Yep.
And if you don't have to pay someone, you're not going to pay someone.
Yeah, and it'll be important to know that if there is a situation for Chase Young to now succeed in, it is the 49ers because you've got Nick Bosa, who he reunites with from Ohio State. You've got Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead. There's a lot of one-on-one opportunity for Chase Young to finally impress in his NFL career. Staying on the topic of the Commanders, however, they also deal their other impressive edge rusher, Montez Sweat, to the Chicago Bears, who actually fetched more than Chase Young. He gets a 2nd-round pick in return. What do you think about that move?
I honestly think this is the start of a new era for the Commanders. They don't have a defensive anchor really anymore.
Yeah.
They do have Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, but
they don't look too happy either, though.
I mean, nobody's
Cameron Curl's looking for a new contract too.
Yeah, well, and if you want to pay those guys, you're going to have to.
Yeah.
And I would guess that they're going to be able to if they are rolling with Powell, who most sacked quarterback in the NFL currently. I think he's like some yardage, which is bad, impressive. But
he's been sacked, I think, above 40 times.
Nobody's going to succeed in that environment.
No, that's difficult.
But if you're looking at right now, I don't think Sweat fetching a higher draft pick is at all surprising to me.
Sure.
But potentially, I mean, obviously Chase Young was once the number 2 overall draft pick, and going to San Francisco that's a crazy thought.
Obviously holds a lot of merit where you were selected in the NFL draft, so maybe that does tie into it. But Montez Sweat has had an impressive season so far, 6.5 sacks on the season, the same amount as the entire Bears defensive line to this point. What's this mean for the Chicago Bears? They're shifting towards a more outside rush kind of thing because I know they signed Yannick Ngakoue in the offseason, and that really hasn't panned out.
I'm so intrigued by it, and it would be the most Bears thing to do to trade for Sweat, and they want to try to re-sign him. It didn't sound like that was a lock.
Right.
So a second for a guy, I mean, I don't see them making the playoffs, but who knows? I mean, anything can happen.
Fields still week to week, though. So.
Fields is week to week. That's got to be just a functional thing. He can't grab the football.
Yeah.
But they also didn't trade, what's his name? Jalen
Johnson.
Yeah, Jalen Johnson, which
stays put.
He wants a new contract, and if they don't keep him or Sweat, is that the worst move of the year?
Yeah. I mean, Jalen Johnson was a guy that a lot of teams were all over. Why do you think the move didn't happen?
Including the Bills. Jalen Johnson, only 24 years old, so he's still to enter his prime. I don't think we've seen the best of Jalen Johnson quite yet.
Yeah.
He's actually having a great year and kind of a terrible season, to put it lightly, for the Bears.
Yeah.
So I think being that he's one of the only bright spots in the roster, I think they just kept him for the sake of keeping him.
Sure.
I would be interesting to see what they do long term with him.
Mm-hmm.
Sweat, 27 years old, so he's getting close to that 30 mark.
Yeah.
Bears are just a team that I just don't know which direction they're really going in.
It's difficult.
They're just in a weird spot.
It's difficult for the Bears right now, but they will have plenty of cap space to work with now. So if they do want to re-sign Jalen Johnson, that's probably going to be entirely up to him if he wants to stay in Chicago. I mean, they've got the money to work with. I know it's been mentioned that he did want to stay in Chicago. That might have played, a role, but obviously, mentioned that the Bills were in on him. Probably the price point just way out of range for Buffalo. We've got a few other moves to actually cover still. Kevin Byard, early on to the trade deadline, he gets moved to the Eagles, who already have a very impressive secondary, for just Terrell Edmonds and a 2024 5th and 6th round pick. That's a price point that really shocked me. What can you tell me about that, Richie?
Again, like I said, Chase Young was the rich getting richer. This is really the rich getting richer.
Yeah.
The Eagles are.
I would have been near the
I mean, the Bills don't need safety help, but
I know he's older, but he's still got good football in him.
Yeah, no. And that's the top two teams in the NFC make a move. And
yeah,
depending on how you view it, I mean, the Jags, if they're in the top two, they traded for
Ezra
Cleveland, who's one of I think, the maybe like a top 7, top 10 guard.
He's still young.
And he's young and, an offensive line in front of Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne.
Sure.
Travis Etienne is a top 3 running back right now.
Wow. He is
on fire.
This guy's impressive. I mean, we saw it against the Bills, obviously, but I mean, since that, he's kind of been on an incredible hot streak, and that's what I would have liked the Bills to make, but that's a discussion for another time. And obviously, we have Leonard Williams going to Seattle, and he fetched a 2nd round pick, which was a shocker to many. What do you think about that, Colton?
I think in terms of Seattle, they can afford to overpay.
Sure.
They're in a really weird spot because once you pay a quarterback and you're handcuffed, how do you go and make moves? How do you acquire? So for them, it was draft picks. They've struggled, especially losing Poona Ford, who was a good run blocker.
Sure.
I mean, Lawrence comes into the league as a pass rusher, and now he's a renowned run stuffer. So I think for them it's a win. And they're one of the top teams in the NFC. It doesn't feel like it. But
6-2,
they find a way.
West.
They come back last week, last second win against Cleveland. And then in that NFC West, Josh Dobbs goes from Cards to Minnesota to fill in for Kirk Cousins, who tore his Achilles. I like that. People were saying Jameis Winston.
Sure.
I didn't think that was going to happen, although it was reported to be on its way. I like that safe pick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talent in that offense, so they don't need a superstar.
They don't Kirk's a very good quarterback, but he's not going to blow you away, right? He's not going to win you games by himself. So it didn't take much to really support that offensive cast. And then, so as far as the Giants in that trade, mostly just a salary dump, right? Leonard Williams had a big contract tied to his name. So, I mean, I really like that trade for the Giants to get that contract off the books and acquire a 2nd round pick. Seattle's defense now gets better, and they sit atop the NFC West at 6-2, which honestly, when I paid attention to it, kind of shocked me because the 49ers are in a bit of a slid here, and that'll be interesting to watch towards the end of the season. Finally, our first trade for the Bills actually this season. They make a deal for a defensive back. Rasul Douglas from the Green Bay Packers comes in to bolster the secondary. What can you tell me about the rundown on Rasul Douglas, Richie?
So even coming out of college, he was known as a ball hawk. He led the NCAA in interceptions during his draft year. Super Bowl champ right away with the Eagles. He really bloomed with the Packers in the past 2 seasons. He had 5 interceptions in 2021, 4 interceptions in 2022. I feel like he's a good scheme fit. I feel like he really thrives in zone coverage. The Packers had a lot of zone sets where they utilized Douglas. I think he's certainly going to impact the game more than Elam has.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think he's most likely going to start right away.
Do we think he's activated for the Bengals game, or are we holding off yet?
Well, he didn't practice today, and the official injury report or practice report was under just got here.
That's funny. That's funny.
So as practice was going on, he was getting there, shaking hands and dapping up what are now teammates. I don't know if he'll play this week. But at the same time, the Bills run, even without Leslie Frazier, a heavy cover 2 defense.
Yes.
And that's where he thrives.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at his highlights, all those interceptions, the pick sixes are coming with him, which is where he would be, and obviously in the Bills defense. So I think it's someone that could see some time. I don't know if he would be full time for this game or
maybe a limited role.
A
limited role at best, and then that'll be interesting to watch because
exactly.
that'll really help us against a Bengal passing offense that is among one of the best in the NFL right now. So we have Douglas coming in, 29 years old, kind of a veteran, but that kind of helps the Bills in this scenario because it's a relatively young defensive back room with Christian Benford and Dane Jackson. So you get a veteran that comes in who is still playing good football to this point, and I think that's a win for the Bills. We have another move that the Bills made. Leonard Fournette gets signed to the practice squad.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that last show, and it was eating me up, man. I don't know what their plan is for him. Brandon Beane said solely for competition. But what if he competes and wins? What if he? I mean, Damian Harris is out for who knows how long.
We think he's out for the year now.
This is a pretty telling move. It's a neck though, so who knows? I'm not here to guess.
Sure.
But Latavius Murray leads the NFL for I forget what it is at the 1 yard line most times getting stuffed. Whatever that stat is.
Yeah, that's brutal.
I mean, I think it happened a couple times last week. So even if it's in for Murray, who I don't think has looked bad.
Sure.
But a complimentary. He had his best season last year and then just did not get signed.
1,200 all-purpose yards for Fournette last year. Kayla, how do you feel about the move?
I think it's a really good move. In all honesty, because it gives you somebody you can rely on outside of Murray and Cook. And although Cook's been doing good, I don't really have that much faith in Murray. Like, I have nothing against him. He's like good when he gets it done when we need him to. But Fournette is harder. He plays harder, in my opinion, if that makes sense. Almost like more explosive.
Sure, yeah.
And they call him Playoff Lenny. The Bills are clearly trying to make a playoff run.
Yeah.
Von Miller also plays his best football in the playoffs, in my opinion. So I think that's a good look for the Bills to have two solid players on both sides of the ball that really blossom in playoff time. I mean, just last season alone, he had 668 rushing yards, 523 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. And he still wants to play. He's got it in him.
Yeah.
Cited the Tom Brady retirement for part of the reason he wanted to leave the Bucs. So
4th overall pick in 2017, Leonard Fournette was a highly touted prospect out of LSU. And this is a guy that can still produce. I mean, we talked about his production last year. And I think he also adds an element of pass protection for Josh Allen. I know that's a theme for the Bills that they've been talking about recently. And I think he's a better receiving threat than Latavius Murray as well. I mean,
no, he definitely.
I don't love Leonard Fournette's vision, but I like the way that he catches the ball. And obviously, he's a weapon with the ball in his hands with the way he's built, Richie.
So when you talk about how running backs are being devalued probably more than ever right now, I was kind of curious to see if Leonard Fournette would get another job in the NFL, but I feel like the talent is there. He was very highly picked, 4th overall.
Yeah.
He has experience on winning teams. He was really the main offense on that AFC Championship Jaguars team, obviously with the Bucs. He was on some winning teams. So experienced vet, good receiving back. And Murray himself is 33, oldest running back in the NFL. They say it already. So he's actually younger. I don't see why he couldn't find a role on this Bills offense. And he also is pretty close with Stephon Diggs. Close with the
How do we think we see him?
I don't know that it's a lot that we do see him.
Yeah, I mean, it could be very sparing.
And I think it's just because you would start him over a guy like Ty Johnson, who plays special teams. And I don't know that Fournette does that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what kind of role he kind of fits in with the Bills. But, hey, that's an exciting name. That's a high-profile name that, as far as I'm aware of. And he could fit in nicely alongside James Cook if they choose to play Latavius Murray less. Speaking of the Bills, we have a massive matchup coming up this Sunday night in Cincinnati. They're going to have a revenge game opportunity against the Cincinnati Bengals. Wow. And that left a sour taste in all of our mouths last year against the Bengals. How are we feeling about this game, guys?
Well, I mean, for a while it looked like we were going to, play the Bengals, and not that it was going to be a cakewalk in any means because they have Joe Burrow, but they've looked great the last couple of games. They just blew San Francisco out of the water. The score didn't indicate how I felt the game looked.
Sure.
Joe Burrow looked great. His offensive line, which has been the biggest criticism of Cincinnati, has blocked well for him. He's got the best, protection rate in the NFL. And Jamar Chase is just a changer.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a bad matchup for a team that, has a banged up cornerback room, even though with Rasul, being there, I don't know what to expect defensively. I think offensively, you gotta chew clock.
Yeah.
You can't leave the ball in Joe Burrow's hands. You have to make them make every drive count. You can't, just keep giving the ball back. And chunk plays are awesome, but I'd like to see them, utilize James Cook and those shorter chain moving throws rather than deep shots.
Richie, how important will it be to keep the running backs moving and limiting the amount of time that the Bengals have on offense?
Realistically, they need to if they want a chance at winning.
Sure.
Because when they try to go into shootouts with the Bengals, they tried to do it before and it hasn't really worked in their favor. I think they should try to work the inside too. I think they should get Kincaid involved, get Shakir involved. I feel like, especially after Bates left, they do kind of have a weakness at the safety position.
Yeah.
And I feel like they should definitely get Fournette involved, get Cook involved, just do a lot of short yardage plays. I know you want to have the big explosive plays, but it really – time of possession might be one of the most important things for us this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike their defense, right? They've got a lot of good players. They've got Trey Hendrickson, obviously one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Daxton Hill, the young second-year player out of Michigan, playing a lot of good football for them. Are you worried about their defense, Kayla, or no?
I'm not so worried about the defense. I think they have the talent and the ability to slow down Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Tyler Boyd. It's just asking what defense actually shows up because the Bills aren't the most consistent at all.
Yeah.
But on paper, Jamar Chase definitely has our corners beat. He posts an 88.3 PFF grade, while Christian Benford only has a 67.1 on coverage, and Taron Johnson 68.8.
Yeah.
So just based on those two, I think they need to cover Jamar Chase, and it's hard because you also have to make sure you work in coverage over Tyler Boyd, but Joe Burrow and
mentioned T. Higgins yet.
Exactly.
This is one hell of an offense, guys.
Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have been connecting really good together.
Yeah.
He just had 3 touchdowns against Arizona, and then I believe they had a touchdown again last week against the 49ers.
Yeah.
So if they can hold them down, it looks good. But
yeah, what do you think the biggest key on defense is going to be for the Bills to stop that high-powered offense?
And it's tough because they don't play man-to-man, so you would have to shade, a stronger side of the zone, make it a little bit harder towards whatever, side he's towards.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase has 3 times the amount of, receptions for first down as anyone else in that team, and the most first downs on that team.
Yeah.
So when it matters, it's probably going to Chase.
Yeah.
And if it's not, they're probably taking a deep shot with, the guy who catches most of their deep balls, T. Higgins, or they're going under with Tyler Boyd. So there's so many ways they can beat you.
Yeah.
I just think you have to just say, okay, beat me, but don't beat me with Jamar Chase.
And the thing I'm worried about that we haven't even mentioned yet is Joe Mixon is going.
He had his best game last week against the Niners defense.
And I am scared because what did we see in the playoffs last year? The absence of Daquan Jones killed the Bills last year in the playoffs. What do you know? We face the Bengals again and he's gone. This is a scary matchup. Joe Mixon's a strong, decisive, smart runner. They're going to have to pay attention to that. I mean, he's got the ability to really hurt you in the run game.
Yeah, he like I just said, he had his best last week. He doesn't do crazy well after contact, but if you're going to try to arm tackle Joe Mixon, you're not going to.
Yeah.
And he's a big back, but he's a good pass catcher.
Yeah, he is.
And if Bernard doesn't bring, his best game, he's gonna get taken to lunch.
Yeah. What do we think about that linebacker? Do we think Terrell Bernard still stays in, or sorry, not Terrell Bernard, Tyrell Dodson stays in, or Dorian Williams get a few more looks? Because it kind of seems like Dorian Williams is in the dog.
No, I think it's gonna be Dodson. I think they would take out Williams just to put him back in. And probably the best offense, second best offense you've played all year, but the hottest team you've also played all year.
Richie, you mentioned the importance of the Bills' pass rush against the Bengals, getting after Joe Burrow. How are they going to do that in the best facet?
Well, Von Miller has a prime opportunity here, primetime game.
Yeah.
Really, Bills have not beaten the Joe Burrow Bengals yet. So the lights are bright. They're on Von Miller. He gets his prime opportunity. They have, although their offensive line has looked good, it's still probably one of the weakest spots on the roster, especially on the right side.
Sure.
So I think Rousseau's having a great year so far. Leonard Floyd's having a very solid year. Epinesa. I think the prime way to get into Joe Burrow's head, because there's no way, I'm sorry, we're not stopping the passing game.
It's difficult. It's difficult for any defense in the NFL to do that. And we're banged up, so it's going to be even harder.
I feel like they just have to get into his head.
Yeah,
I think.
Sure. A lot of unique defensive looks probably against the Bengals here. Yes. And it'll be interesting because it's really we're gonna have to get after him. And the thing is, he looked slow to start the season. Yeah. I know that calf injury. I think the calf injury played a lot. It finally seems like Joe Burrow's healthy and he shreds the 49ers last week. It's a scary sight. We're not home. We don't have the Mafia advantage. We're going into Adam and Eve territory, primetime Sunday night. It's going to be a difficult match. I would say this is one of the hardest matchups the Bills will have all season.
I think it is. I think this is the hardest matchup. Yeah. Second is Philly. Miami, to me, they were the hottest team. Sure. I take back. The Bengals are the hardest team. The Dolphins are the hottest team that they played. But to me, it's different. It can happen. The Bengals haven't won a game against the AFC. Yeah, I know, they haven't won a game against the AFC. Why would that be favorable? I feel like that's not going to continue. And if the Bills don't play their best game, then they're going to lose. You're not going to play, a 7 out of 10 game and leave Cincinnati with a win.
Right.
If they don't score in the first quarter, it's very likely that the game gets away from them. They can't. Last week was the first time they finally put up points in the first half in a minute. So if they wait that long and just keep hitting snooze, you cannot wait till the third quarter to start playing against the Bengals. They have to score
points in all 4 quarters.
Absolutely.
Against the Bengals, against the Eagles, against the Chiefs.
Maybe even a special.
Something has to give. You have to win 2. it's still league football stuff. 2 of the 3 parts of the game: special teams, offense, defense. Yeah. And you win 2 of those 3, and you're probably going to win the game. I just, man, you got to keep the ball in Joe Burrow's hands. That's the last thing I'll say.
You have to. And the last thing I kind of want to cover up, as we head into this star-studded game, a lot of good players on the Bills and Bengals. Who are some players to watch on the Bills offense or defense that you guys are looking forward to that need a big performance this weekend?
I was with James Cook. Yep. I think, like we said, we need to chew some clock out. It would be nice to see some it's not the prettiest type of plays, but those 5-yard rushes, those shovel passes outside, just keep moving the chain, keep getting the first downs.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, Diggs is the best playmaker on that offense.
Oh, absolutely.
There's you can't just go away from Diggs.
Sure.
I just think, and I would like to see Kincaid get more involved. I would like to see Shakir get more involved, especially running those inside routes against them, because I feel like they're not weak against the inside, but I'm not necessarily scared of them on the inside.
Colton, what do you have your eyes on?
I have 2 guys in the defense, and I agree with James Cook. I think Rousseau and Ebenezer have to have their best games. Sure. And that's tough because Ebenezer has played some really good football. Yeah. I think you have to set that edge against Joe Mixon. You can't let them beat you in the run, because if they're going to beat you in the run, they're going to beat you in the pass too. And if they establish the run, it's that much easier to roll out a play action. And Joe Burrow is so smart. He played his worst football of his career in the first 4-game span to start this year, and he didn't throw more than a pick. He hasn't thrown dual interception or had a dual interception game yet this season, and that goes to show you how smart he is. So you can't get beat in the run to start early.
Yeah, that's very massive. Caleb, what do you think?
I'm really going to go Richie, in all honesty, but especially with getting Kincaid in the game. I think he's been doing good, and you really should keep giving the rookie touches to see what he can do, especially with the other tight end out for who knows how long.
Sure.
I think the more we can get Kincaid in, the better. And it takes away coverage on Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, we're looking for a few nice games for Dalton Kincaid down the stretch here. Really quickly before we wrap up, final predictions.
Just because I want us to win, I'll go 27-4 Bills.
27-24 Bills. Colton.
41-35 Bengals.
Okay. Caleb.
Oh, I was going to say 24-21. And I, again, have this being one of those games where they're tied up until the fourth quarter, and it's a field goal that makes the Bills win.
I think I'm going to give this game to the Bengals because it's a tough game. They're hot. We know that they're hot. The Bills, we don't know if they're going to hit their stride right now. So it'll be tough. It's like you said, it's one of the toughest games of the season.
I will say, though,
if the Bengals win this week, they jump the Bills in the standings.
Wow. Yeah, so this is a massive game. A lot of playoff implications already here in Week 9. Massive game for the Bills. They're going to have to play their best football against the Bengals. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to Buffalo Sports Insider. We had a lot to talk about today, and we're going to have a lot to talk about next Monday. Right after that Bills game, Sunday night. Sabres playing Saturday against Toronto and Philly on Friday in a few days here. So we're going to obviously a big show on Monday. Thank you for tuning in. This is Justin Sejak, Richie Miller, Colton Pankowitz, Kayla Sterner, Sarah Terrio for the Sabres coverage. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful – thank you.